Great. So thank you everybody for attending. First of all, I thought it would be nice to just go around, as there's not loads of us, and if everyone could just introduce themselves. I appreciate a lot of you already know each other, but obviously some people maybe aren't as familiar with others. We have, as a lot of you are aware, in the ESE, from the ESE perspective, an affiliated patient group scheme, which a number of you are members of. But obviously, for those of you who work more on the paediatric side, you may not be as aware of that, or you may not know a lot of the groups here. So I'm going to work down my list, and I think it's in alphabetical order. And if everyone could just say who you are and what your role is and which organisation you're with, that would be much appreciated. So I'm going to start with Arlene.
Hi, I'm Arlene from the Turner Syndrome Support Society.
Thank you. And Jette?
Hello, I'm Jette from the Danish Adrenal Patient Organization.
Thank you. And Mark?
Hi, it's Mark Gutenbender from Let's Cure ACC.
And Nora?
Hi, I'm Nora McNerney. I'm with IPSWO, the International Prader-Willi Syndrome Organization.
And Jay?
I'm Jay Shepherd. I'm the head of fundraising at the Pituitary Foundation based in the UK.
Okay, Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Schmidt. I'm from Congenital Hyperinsulinism International, and I'm based in New Jersey in the United States.
Thanks. The names are jumping around a bit, so Johan? Oh, he's just got to take a phone call, so I'll come back to him. Julia?
Hi, I'm Julia Priestley from the British Thyroid Foundation.
And Julie?
Hi, I'm Julie Raskin with Congenital Hyperinsulinism International.
And Margaret?
Yes, hello, I'm Margaret Walker. I work with Nora at IPSO and I'm the new CEO.
Thanks. And Petra?
Hello, I'm from Germany. I am the head of the European MEN Alliance, and I am together with Johan an Endo-ERN EPAC.
Wonderful. When Johan's back, I'll ask him to say hello as well. I'm Natalie Das. I formerly work for ESE, the European Society of Endocrinology, but for the purposes of this Congress, I'm working across both SB and ESE, both with the patient group engagements, but also with the industry engagements. So I look after all the sponsors and exhibitors. So from your perspective, and I'll go through the contact details at the end, but essentially I am your main point of contact when it comes to the Congress. And I wanted to set up this call, obviously, to help you in your planning, your participation at the Congress, and answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully it'll work. Okay, can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yep.
That's a great start.
Before I make too many notes, will you share the slides afterwards?
I will share the slides and I'll share the
Great.
recording, Mark. So yeah, you can just sit back and relax and don't have to scribble too much. And like I say, so in terms of an agenda, this is roughly what I'm going to go through today. So you can see there's quite a chunk of time at the end for questions, discussion. Obviously, it's going to be just me talking, so do feel free to raise hands or just unmute yourself throughout the call if you've got any specific questions about something that I'm covering. I'm trying to cover most things, but obviously I might miss something or there might be specific questions, so do just shout up if there's anything you are not clear on. So we've done the welcome and introductions. We're already ahead of time, so that's a good start. What I wanted to do to start with is just very quickly go over, because different people have different understandings of why we are doing a joint congress, the two societies. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background to that, and then I will move on to the more practical elements of the patient group participation at the congress. So the relationship between SB and ESE goes back a number of years, a very long time, and we've been working with SB for a long time, and a lot of you will have been involved with various projects that have happened over the years between our two societies. So this is just really a summary slide of all the various ways we work with SB, and it does go beyond this as well. So there's currently a project which is coming to its culmination actually as we speak, the EndoCompass project, which is about mapping the research needs within endocrinology across the paediatric and the adult space. So that's been a huge joint project that we, ESE and SB, have been running for the last couple of years, and that's going to be presented at the Joint Congress. And there's actually also imminently going to be a supplement to the European Journal of Endocrinology, which covers all the different chapters of EndoCompass, which covers the full scope of endocrinology. We also work with ESPE in terms of European policy and advocacy. So a lot of activities going on at Brussels, and we have a EU liaison officer, Misha van Eimeren, who some of you may know, and he works very hard in terms of both ESE and ESPE's presence in Brussels. Obviously, prior to this joint congress, we have run joint sessions at each other's annual meetings for a number of years now. There have been combined sessions, I think at least for the last 4 or 5 years between ESPE and ESE. World Hormone Day, which has been a sort of ESE-led initiative for the last few years as European Hormone Day, but ESPE has always been on board with that and is becoming more so. So that is one of our key sort of awareness days under the banner of Because Hormones Matter, which we use throughout the year, which a lot of you will be aware of. And then we also run joint rare disease webinars with ESPE and EndoERN. When I say we, obviously I work for ESE, so I'll fall into that even though I'm representing both at this point for this Congress. So we run these rare disease webinars, and also importantly, we have a transition of care working group, which is working at the moment on developing guidance about transition of care, which is obviously a really key thing. And I think particularly for you and your organisations, that point about transitioning from paediatric care to the adult care system is quite a big topic, I think. So that's just a bit of a background as to the way our two societies work together. And then this joint congress has been quite a few years in the making. It was originally planned as a sort of co-located meeting. So even though both societies would be in Copenhagen, they'd be very separate meetings. But obviously, the more we talked about it, the more it made absolute sense to bring everything together under one roof and really make it a truly joint endeavour, not just two separate meetings happening in the same place at the same time. So from the point of view of the Congress, just a little bit of information for you, which will hopefully help you. So as I said, we've been in discussions, the two societies, for a long time. So we've had a joint steering committee, which was established about 2.5 years ago now, that has been really working on the planning for the Congress from the high level perspective. And, you know, that decision about it not being co-located, but being a really truly joint Congress is something that this steering committee was sort of instrumental in deciding. So you can see the key players there, and obviously representation from across both societies. And then beyond that, we have a joint scientific programme committee. So that is headed up by Peter Kuhnen from the paediatric side and Cynthia Andoniadou from the adult side. We have then the two sort of society representative groups there, but they are also supported by a larger programme committee. So each society has put forward a programme committee which has proposed and developed sessions. And when they were doing that, they were encouraged to really consider the life course perspective. There are obviously some sessions which are purely paediatric, some are purely adult because of the nature of the diseases that they are speaking about. But what this programme committee has been really careful to do is try and really make sure that this is a truly joint programme. So all of the plenary lectures, etc., have both an adult and paediatric perspective and across the life course perspective. And it's important to say as well, this is not just about transition, it's about the full spectrum of the life course. It's not just a focus on that period of transition. So just a few little key statistics for you. So ordinarily ESE hosts ECE and ESPE hosts their annual meeting. So ECE is usually May, and then the ESPE annual meeting is September. Last year was a bit later in November. As you can see, roughly a similar number of attendees. Obviously, that sometimes depends on the location of the meeting. ECE does tend to attract more abstracts just because of the nature of the adult endocrine space, and also that, you know, the paediatric society tend to be more generalist. So there's a fewer number of abstracts submitted, but we are anticipating, obviously, as a result of this, some big numbers for this year. So we are estimating 6,500 to 7,000 attendees in Copenhagen. So obviously a much bigger meeting than either of us have individually run. We have 10 content streams, and I'll talk you through the programme later on. Obviously a global outreach. So even though we are European societies, we are really looking this being a global meeting, and it's already, in terms of the program and in terms of the attendees and the abstracts we've received, it is really looking that way. Obviously, it's slightly influenced, and I guess Jennifer, you'll know more about this as well. The situation in the US at the moment in terms of what healthcare professionals are able to do and funding and all of those kinds of things does mean that we've seen a lot of inquiries come from people who want to attend this meeting. Also, the Endocrine Society's annual meeting this year is in July, which obviously runs into summer for quite a lot of people. So from this Congress's perspective, it's not just about the US, more global than that as well. You know, South America, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Australia. We have people already coming from many places. Obviously, patient group activities, which is what you're all here to hear about. We've already, so the initial abstract submission has already closed, and we received over 3,000 abstracts to that first submission. There is late breaking abstract opening imminently, I think the beginning of March, and then closing on the 12th of March. So there's a short period there for late breaking data as well. But that's in line with what we were anticipating is over 3,000 abstracts. And then obviously we have industry sessions, satellite symposia, and some other types of sessions as well. The venue, I won't go into too much detail, but we're at the Bella Centre in Copenhagen, which is obviously a purpose-built Congress centre with massive capacities. The only thing I would say is in terms of small meeting rooms, we're actually quite limited. For a venue this big, the small meeting spaces are limited, but in terms of the overall venue layout and the capacity, it's a huge space, and we've essentially taken over the whole building. So this is the layout of and I will show in more detail when we come to talk about the patient zone, exactly what that looks like. But you can see that the 10 session rooms, which are the rooms in green, plus the Congress Theatre, the exhibition, which is Hall E, you can see my cursor up on this side, and then the poster hall, and then obviously various meeting rooms, as I said, where people can have smaller meetings. And I know you won't be able to read this, so don't worry. This is just to show the breadth and depth of the scientific programme. On Saturday, the 10th of May, there are a number of pre-Congress courses going on. So there's one with the Androgen Excess and PCOS Society. There is a thyroid ultrasound pre-Congress course. There's also nurses' activities on that Saturday as well, prior to the opening ceremony. And then after that, we come into the main Congress days, the Sunday, Monday and Tuesday, with the 10 content streams. And I say 10, there's 10 on Sunday, sorry, plus the nurses session. So it's quite a packed programme. But the vast majority, you can see the ones with the little icons on, are going to be live streamed as well. So pretty much the whole programme will be live streamed and will also be available on demand, so that if there are a couple of sessions that you'd like to see and they're clashing, then obviously there's an opportunity to watch those back as well. This is something that I'm very keen to speak to you all about. So we've had a lot of discussions with the Danish Medicines Agency in terms of what's classed as healthcare professional from an industry compliance perspective. So what we have come to is, well, this is the Danish Medicines Agency definition of healthcare professional. What this means is, in terms of the commercial exhibition, they've advised that anyone defined as public, so it's not just patient groups, but obviously I'm talking to you, so that's what I focused on here. We needed to find a way that actually that commercial exhibition could be avoided, but also still provide you with the access to the sessions and to catering and all those other things that we want you to have access to. So there's an exception made when it comes to the exhibitors within the commercial exhibition. So, for example, a couple of you will be supporting on the ENDO-ERN booth, which is in the main exhibition, and therefore under the rules that is okay as an exhibitor. But what the guidance is essentially to try to avoid the pharmaceutical booths, because obviously they have promotional information on. Now, obviously we ask for your support in that, and we have set up the Congress, and I'll show you later exactly how we've done that, so that you can access everything you need to, just without going to those pharmaceutical booths. But are there any questions on this point? Because I realise this is something that which we've been fighting against in many locations for a very long time, and we want to make sure you get the access you want. So Julie.
Yeah, I mean, I find it strange because we are professionals. I would think, in fact, would not be considered the general public. If we are professional patient advocates, professional researchers, we are not people who will be, well, maybe some people will potentially, you know, could potentially take one of those patients, but probably the vast majority of us would not. And so I would think that even those who would, there are physicians who will be at, you know, attending, endocrinologists who also could be patients. So I think it's very artificial and ridiculous and problematic.
I completely agree, Julie, and I think, you know, I can see Arlene nodding as well, and I think we're all in agreement with that. From our perspective, and I say from an ESE perspective, and I know SB feel the same, we absolutely recognise that patient experts are, you know, you and patient group advocates, you are exactly that. You are experts in the space, and it's not like allowing general public patients, you know, into that space. All we have to do, and all I have to do, is obviously communicate to you that this is the Danish Medicines Agency definition. So from our perspective, if we have questions from sponsoring companies who say, you know, what are you doing, then, you know, I've communicated this to you, and you know, you're all aware of this, and we completely agree. As societies, we are in complete agreement with that, Julie. And I've had many conversations with a number of you around this exact perspective and what we can try and do to actually get patient advocates the recognition that they deserve in this space. But this is just something that obviously I needed to make you all aware of in terms of the compliance that we have to work within. But as I will show you, it doesn't really restrict your access to anywhere else. It's just those central pharmaceutical booths. We just need to obviously make sure that we're reflecting the guidance that we've received from that compliance perspective. I'm just reading Johan's point, SB, yes, was also, and this is the thing, Johan, I think we all just need to be very diplomatic and understanding about it. And like I say, I've shared this information with you, but I think you're all well aware of, you know, what you are and aren't allowed to do, what you are and allowed to say and discuss. And, you know, I think you're all, as you say, the experts in this. So
and then the pharmaceutical companies are coming at the booth and have a talk with you. So that's the reality. And on paper, it's totally different. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
But it's true that we are perceived as patients in need, and that should be changed. And that's I totally agree with that. That's something stupid. We are patients doing research, publishing papers and everything. We're not just an average patient.
And I think it's something we've tried to do, and I know SB are doing the same. It's something we tried to do, is create this affiliate scheme, because we absolutely appreciate, as a society, we absolutely appreciate that. So from our perspective, yes, completely agree with you. You know, we're with you on that. But obviously, I have to, from the compliance perspective, I have to share this with you. So I don't want to get bogged down in too much of a discussion around this, but just to say that we do completely see you as more than just patients. Sounds wrong to say, but you know what I mean. Okay, so on to the next one. So in terms of the opportunities available to patient groups, and when I say opportunities available, all of these are obviously offered free of charge. So I will talk through each one individually. Arlene, I've used you as our poster girl there. So the patient experience zone, for those who haven't attended an ECE before, this is something we've done for the last couple of years from the adult perspective. And I know SB is looking at trying to incorporate something similar. So I'm hoping that this joint congress will be a bit of a boost to that from the pediatric perspective as well, to show that it can really work and it is really a valuable thing. So the patient experience zone is located in the poster hall, and I'll show you exactly what that means in terms of flow when on the next slide. It includes the setup, as you can see Arlene modelling so beautifully down there, the branded lockable desk, a screen and literature stand if you want them. Now, obviously, if you don't need one or either of those, that's fine. We can take those away. And access to setup is from noon on Saturday, the 10th of May. So it's plenty of time. There are some pre-Congress activities going on that day, as I mentioned, but in general, delegates won't be accessing that space until the Sunday. So you've got plenty of time in terms of access there. Within that patient zone, there will also obviously be the comfortable seating. You can see an example there, which is what we had in Stockholm, but there will be the comfortable seating. Importantly, there will also be the catering around that space and good delegate foot flow, and I'll show you that on the next slide. So as you can see here, and sorry, it's a bit blurry, of the 10 session rooms, which are sort of down here on the bottom right, we have 3 of the main session rooms here in C1, C2, and C4, all of which are accessed from this side. So you'll basically have direct access into those, but also, as you can see here, there's a walkway through here. So when I talked about if you want to avoid that exhibition hall, there is access to all of the education spaces from there without the need to go into the exhibition hall. And obviously the posters are there. The e-poster screens will be down this side. So people will be constantly passing and interacting with this space. And then we have a large seating catering space right next door for you. One of the things I also wanted to mention, it's some feedback we've had from the last couple of years, is that it would be great for patient groups to have just a quiet space to be able to go. It's obviously quite an intense and busy Congress. So even though it's not marked on the other plans, you can see this blue box here. We have room 28, which is just set aside for your use. So that will just have some comfortable seating. It's a place you can go that isn't a million miles away. You don't have to find your way back to a hotel room or anything if you need to have a bit of a break. So that is something that is purely for patient group use. That's not going to be accessed by anyone else during the Congress. That's just for your use. Just for your awareness, there are a couple of cash bars. There's one sort of up here in Hall C, which is this location. There's also this one here. So if you do find you want something outside of the main Congress catering, there is always catering available, but also the tea and coffee stations will be open throughout, and there will be plenty of water stations throughout as well. So these are the ones I have on my list, and apologies if I think I've captured everybody. If you don't see your organisation's name there and looking around the screen, I think I've got everyone. Obviously, some of you have indicated that you'll be on a shared space with the Endo-ERN in the exhibition hall, which is why you might not see your names here. But these are the ones that I have the confirmed physical desks for in that patient zone space. So you can see it's a really good mix and a nice number of organisations as well. And then moving on, so the patient's voice, and again, I'll talk about it for those who haven't been to an EC or haven't seen it before. We have 8 live session slots available. So what the patient's voice is a 30-minute session, which takes place either at lunchtime or in the afternoon break in the Congress Theatre. So there's a few examples here. This the top picture is last year's theatre. And then down here, this is the space we will be using in Copenhagen, although this will be sort of walled off. It's not the best example on here because the photos aren't the greatest, but essentially it will be a 100-seater theatre with a big screen like this, a lectern, etc. And they are 30-minute sessions, and I'll talk a bit more about how to formulate one of those to make it as appealing as possible. They are live streamed. And will be recorded and made available on demand as well. There is the option to purchase the MP4 file. Unfortunately, we get the costs passed to us by the supplier, so that's something that we can't really absorb. And as I said, will be in the Congress Theatre. So you can see the slots here. They are up against, they're concurrent with the Industry Satellite Symposia. Obviously, with such a packed programme, it's difficult to find a slot, but given that there is only a majority of 4 industry sessions at any one time, that obviously provides you with a bit more than going up against one of the 10 other sessions within the other scientific programme slots. So we have 1 patient group session at a time alongside these industry satellite symposia, so 2 at each lunchtime. We haven't put any on the Tuesday purely because Tuesday is when people start heading home, and so we wanted to obviously give maximum visibility to these. And this is the schedule as we have it at the moment. I've listed down there the industry topics that are going on at the same time, just to give you the full view. And as I mentioned, I'll share these slides so you're absolutely clear where your session slits. There is the 1 available slot there, should anyone like to have it. And obviously you can send me a note after that if that's of interest. And yeah, this is the schedule of sessions that we have. The alternative option, and this is partly due to the number of slots only having the 8 slots and obviously more patient groups attending than others, and also because we appreciate there is a resource element in terms of you planning a session and delivering it live. There is also the option to deliver a 30-minute pre-recorded presentation, which we will then host on the Congress platform and obviously promote and make available. That will be there throughout the Congress. So if you didn't want to do a live presentation or weren't in a position to do a live presentation, we'd be more than happy for you to provide us with a recorded 30-minute file, and we will obviously promote that, and that will be available both during the Congress days, but also from an on-demand perspective for 6 months after the Congress on the Congress platform. The third and final element I want to talk to you about very quickly is the Congress e-bag. So for those of you who've only been to the ESPE annual meeting, there's obviously the physical delegate bag that they have. But for the last couple of years at ECE, and it's something we're doing again this year, we haven't had those physical bags with lots of printed flyers, partly because of environmental perspectives. That's obviously a key thing, but also this actually allows us to see real metrics and who's engaging with your content, which is obviously valuable information for you. So what we have here is there's an online Congress bag within the Congress platform where we host everything, and that can be either a link, a document, an image, or a video. And then we also create this large printed wall, and this is last year's from the ECE Congress, where we also create a QR code, or you can provide us with a QR code if it's a link to one of your pages. And delegates can then stand there, scan the QR code and download that content directly to their devices. And we found it's worked really well for the last couple of years at ECE. It means people can save things and they aren't carrying around bags full of flyers, and there's not thousands of flyers which inevitably end up being left or, you know, discarded. So from an environmental perspective, that's obviously a really key thing. This is available to any patient group. It doesn't have to link to, for example, a patient's voice session. This can just be information about your patient group or about some activities that you're doing. All we ask is that you provide us, if you don't want us to use a front page of a PDF, for example, that you provide us with a thumbnail image so that we can show that on the wall, and then delegates know what they are looking at, or if they want to find out more information about that. So that's something, as I say, which is available to everyone. So I'm going to go into the practical information, but before I do, are there any questions about any of those opportunities at this point? Julie?
Yes. What is the patient voice opportunity? Can you describe it? Is that something from ESE, or has that always been an ESPE and I just never knew about it?
No, so that has been something that's been done. Let me just stop sharing so I can see properly. So that's something that's been done at ECE. So it's been an ESE thing for the last few years. It actually started during the pandemic when everything was obviously online, and we found that those 30-minute sessions were really, really popular, really well received when we opened them up to patient groups, because obviously during that time there were limited opportunities for patient groups to interact with delegates as well. It wasn't like an online exhibition, it's not like getting footfall. So we introduced that. They were really well received, and then so we decided to carry them on into the post-COVID era. Sorry, Jay's just dropped out. I'm just going to let him back in. And they are just 30-minute sessions. And what they are, and I'll sort of come on a bit in terms of planning those sessions, but what they are is essentially trying to bring together the patient and the clinician view, bearing in mind the audience of the Congress. So it's been a bit of trial and error over the last few years as to what type of session works. So some organisations have come and just talked about their organisation, whereas others have brought in the clinician perspective and, you know, sort of talked about their disease area, not so much about their organisation, but about the disease and about treatments and the patient experience within that. And that's what's worked really well. So we've provided initially, you know, we did it on a Saturday, and obviously pre-Congress it didn't work so well, and then we did it early morning, and again that had its challenges. So we've sort of now managed to get that integrated more into the main programme, which has worked really well last year when we did it, and obviously with the live streaming and the on-demand content. But it's about promoting your organisation, but as it relates to your disease area. So rather than it being kind of a PR push for just push people to your, if that makes sense. I don't know, obviously a few people here have done these sessions, so I don't know if anybody else wanted to say anything. You might say it better than I will in terms of the value it has for patient groups.
So I haven't done one, but I plan to do one. But basically, how I plan to do it is invite a paediatric representative that I've worked with, and likewise an adult, and then have myself say something about the organisation. And this year I might manage to get somebody to speak on transition so that it goes in line with the conference. So you invite the speaker, you get them to make sure that they're available for the time slot, etc. And you organise it yourself, which Natalie will explain.
Yeah.
Great. And when exactly is this scheduled, and what is the procedure for requesting?
So if I just go back to this, whoop. So you can see here these, oh, sorry, the circled red slots. So it's during the lunchtime and the afternoon tea and coffee on Sunday and Monday during the Congress. And yeah, so they happen in line with those industry symposia, but within that purpose-built Congress theatre. So it's around about 100-seater. And we obviously promote these sessions in advance, and they're in the the printed programme as well. So people can see that. And if you did want to have one, there's this one available slot obviously here. So do just drop me a note afterwards and I'll come on to that, and if that's something of interest. Okay. So in terms of the practical information, so from the patient experience zone perspective, I'll come on to key dates and deadlines, but as a rule, we need you to provide us with a high resolution logo just so we can print it well and we can brand that desk for you. That's a sort of relatively basic thing. If you bring your own laptop or device, you can connect up to those screens. So we don't provide the laptops or devices to do that. You'd need to bring it. Obviously, the desks are lockable and you'd be provided with a key so that you can put those away if you need to step away from the desk at any point. You can also bring a USB stick to plug into that screen if you prefer to do that. And we'll obviously have technicians on site, or one of our team will be around if there's any help needed with those. If you do want to bring roll-up banners, we ask to try and limit to one just because of the space. If you have more than one, it's fine. We can usually find a way to wedge them in, and you talk nicely to your neighbouring desks and can come up with solutions. But just in terms of that space, because as you saw, there are 14 groups coming along, we want to make sure that the space isn't blocked more than anything with lots of different banners. Obviously, and this is sort of don't want to come across as patronising this, but make sure that materials you bring are relevant to the audience. So obviously we're looking at an audience of HCPs and researchers, not patients, etc. And also just a very key thing, bring European plug adapter. So there is power supplied to these desks, but make sure you've got the relevant adapter. And also we don't have any storage facilities. Obviously there is that small room, restroom, but we don't want that to become a storage room. So try not to bring lots of packaging, etc. To be honest, it's usually the sponsors and exhibitors I need to speak to about that rather than you guys, but just so you're aware. And as I mentioned, setup is from 12 o'clock on Saturday, the 10th of May. So you can come anytime during that time. We'll have the preprint, the self-print badge stations in the registration hall, so you can pick up your badge at any point there. And obviously we'll have a staffed registration desk as well. And then as the welcome reception, it's not going to be in the exhibition and poster hall, it's going to be in the foyers outside where the opening ceremony is happening. So you've got time in there. People aren't going to already be coming to your desks during that welcome reception, so they don't need to be staffed. Obviously you're all included in those welcome reception numbers should you wish to be, so you can enjoy that rather than having to worry about being at your desk. And then from the point of view of the session, so what we've discovered over the last couple of years, and it's probably an obvious one, is that actually engaging with clinician or medical experts as well as yourselves are the really popular sessions. And also when you provide a title to us, and I'll come on to the dates and deadlines of when we need that kind of information, make it as engaging and as relevant to this audience as possible, and that will get people there to start with. We will obviously do what we can in terms of promoting these sessions, so we'll promote them in advance and also throughout the Congress. But if it's not engaging, you know as well as anyone, then people aren't going to come along to it. So do feel free to include sort of links within your presentations to your own resources, or let people know that you're in the patient zone, obviously, so that they can come and find out more if they want to. But be clear, obviously, how those support, doctors, HCPs, etc. And consider both the adult and paediatric, if applicable. Obviously, that isn't applicable to all disease areas. and obviously transition of care. What we found, and I mentioned it before, is it's not just about promoting your patient group. That's not for this audience. It's about the disease awareness and how that reflects on patients, and it's not sort of a promo for your patient group. Obviously, we hope that it will act as such so that you will then get people engaging with your resources. But if people come along and think it's just going to be you know, pushing your materials, then they're likely to be put off. Obviously, don't just read off slides. That's a general presentation thing, even though that's exactly what I'm doing at the moment. And try and leave a little bit of space at the end for some interaction. Obviously, with it being a sort of small 100-seater theatre, then it's quite a nice opportunity to sort of have some discussions and engage with the audience there. The one point to note is that speakers, etc., they would need to be invited by you, as Arlene mentioned, and they would need to be registered themselves via the normal registration process. Now, it may be with the size of programme that we've got, some of them are already speaking as part of the scientific programme and therefore will already be covered in terms of registration. If you've got any questions about that or you aren't sure, then do let me know and I can let you know if someone has already got, for example, a complimentary registration as a result of something else they're doing at the Congress. That's fine. In terms of who can speak at your session, that's entirely up to you. So for this, we don't have any restrictions in terms of programme committee or anything like that. It's not like an industry activity where, you know, we have to be a bit stricter about these things. From your perspective, find the best experts you can and try and engage them. And obviously, we're always happy to help support with that, with you know, with identifying people or getting in contact with people if needed. But the invitation would need to come from you as the patient advocacy group. And then
when will you need the title and the co-host?
I will come on to that in just a minute, Mark. I've got a dates and deadline slide for you where it's all summarised. From a registration perspective, there are 2 complimentary passes per patient group. Obviously, we can be a bit flexible. So if, for example, you have 3 or 4 and you're going to rotate the staffing, do just let me know. We're happy to be a bit flexible on this to make sure that you get the most out of your experience. The in-person registration also includes access to online content. So even if you, like, as I mentioned before, if you miss any sessions and you want to catch up, you'll be able to catch up on demand to that online content or watch the live stream. Or if you find that you can't actually be in Copenhagen in person, obviously you can have an online registration. That's absolutely fine. We can set that up so you can still follow the Congress. I will send the registration link by the end of this week. I'm just waiting for some final tweaks to that, but as it's complimentary, that's not a problem. And as I mentioned, if you find that you need additional registrations, do just let me know. We're happy to be flexible on those. I should also mention, which I meant to put on this slide, that your registration includes access to everything aside from obviously what we've mentioned earlier about the exhibition hall. This is access to the full scientific programme. The only caveat to that is that some industry sessions do restrict to HCPs only. That's not unusual. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of that anyway, but that will be specified on that industry invitation. But for this reason, we provide you with a specific patient advocacy group badge. It's not an exhibitor badge or anything, because obviously exhibitors don't have access to all the scientific content, and we want to make sure that you are able to access all those sessions as needed. So that's why you have a specific patient advocacy group badge to enable that access. From a grants perspective, I've been in touch with a number of you already. So there are grants being provided by ESE, SB and ENDO-ERN. So I think everyone who's applied for a grant has been contacted. I need to email a couple of other people in relation to the SB and ENDO-ERN grants, but I know from the ESE perspective, everyone has been informed of that. So if you haven't heard anything or if my email hasn't come through, please do drop me a note and I'll make sure that we can deal with that. But the great thing is that between the 3 organisations, we've managed to cover everyone who has requested a grant or who we anticipate will need a grant as well, which is obviously a really nice position to be in because it's not always the way. So that is grants. So dates and deadlines. So as I said, from tomorrow or from the end of this week at least, I will share that PAG registration link. you have until the Congress, essentially, because they're complementary. We're not thinking about early birds, etc. But obviously, the earlier you get your registration in, the easier it is for us to plan numbers, etc. So once I send you that link and the instructions for claiming that complimentary badge, it would be great if you could do that as soon as possible. I've tried to keep relatively consistent deadlines. So I've got the 21st of March there to provide your logo to me and also a short biography about your patient group, because we'll also include that in the Congress platform. Then also, if you didn't already, let me know whether you require both the screen and the literature stand. I forgot to also mention in the patient zone, there will be a couple of seats there for you, as well as the comfy seating. So you're not just going to be stood at your desk all day. And then also, I'd like to have those talk titles and proposed speakers submitted for those patient voice sessions by the 21st of March. I think all of you who know me know that I'll be flexible and obviously supporting those, but this is more about them promoting those sessions, making sure they're included in that online program, etc. But obviously, if you need a little more time to engage a speaker, etc., just let me know. That's not a problem at all. And then also for the Congress eBag content, that would be great to get by the 21st of March as well. That one is a slightly stricter timeline, purely because we'll be printing that big wall. So we need to make sure we've got all the artwork for that. Worst case scenario, if you really struggle with any of with the deadline for that, we can still include in the online Congress bag right up to the Congress. It's just that printed wall where it might be missed. So there's a little bit of wiggle room on the 21st of March with that, but not an awful lot. From the point of view of the Congress bag content, as I mentioned earlier, it can be any kind of file type. We can host that on the Congress platform, or you can send us a link to a page on your website. We would just need a thumbnail image to display exactly what that is, so that people know what they're looking at and downloading. If you did want a recording of your patient's voice session, so that's the MP4 download, not the recording that goes online, that will go there automatically, but the MP4 download, I'd need to know by March for that, 21st of March for that as well. And then what we are able to do this time for the patient's voice is actually you can have access to upload your own slides if you want to. Now, obviously, if that's challenging, we do also have the speaker preview room at the Congress where you can physically take it on a USB stick and ask them to upload slides for you. But if you want to pre-upload, then the 25th of April is the deadline for that. And you can still then go back to that speaker preview room if you want to check anything or make sure everything's working okay. For the on-demand only sessions, again, there's the 25th April deadline, but I'm more than happy to support you in uploading those MP4 files because obviously the system can be a little bit strange when you get into it, and I know it well. So if you are providing an on-demand only recording and you want me to support or upload that for you, then I'm more than happy to do that as well. But I will share more instructions about both of those things, and you can then decide what's going to work most easily for you. And I mentioned obviously setting up the desk on the 10th of May, and then the process for submitting grant claims will be shared by each of the individual societies. I'll send a bit more information about that as well, but the instructions will be shared in more detail by each society because they each have a slightly different approach to how that works. And then finally, key contacts. Now, there's obviously a list of key contacts here, but essentially I am your main port of call, and then I can pass it on to whoever needs to go to. But in case you have a very quick, detailed question about if the registration form's not working, then the registration contact details are there. And also for the grants, obviously the 3 societies, we have the separate places, but I'm more than happy for everything to come through me, and then we can make sure that have a cohesive approach to absolutely everything. And then you've got the Congress website and the venue website there as well. And I think I've talked very quickly so that we didn't lose too many people. So I'm going to stop sharing, but are there any questions, comments? Jette?
Yes, you were asking for a PAC bio. Is that of the patient association or for the participating person?
Sorry, that's for the association. So a bit of information about the association, yes. Yeah.
Quick question, and I'm sorry if you mentioned this, but what types of things do the grants cover?
So that's travel and accommodation, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there a link where we can find out more about applying for it?
I will send you details because obviously yours would come from the SB perspective, and actually I've spoken to SB and we've kind of factored in something for your organisation. So I'll send you a bit more detail about that separately.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
Nora.
Sorry, go ahead, Johannes.
No, I just wanted to ask, on the desk says screen, and what can be shown on the screen? So what's the size and what makes sense to show on the screen?
So the screen, if I go back, so did the image I showed of our lane, that's the size that you will have. I'm just going to find it and show you.
It's like a computer size screen.
Yeah. So just
a laptop, a little bit bigger than a laptop.
Yeah. So you can see it there. So yeah. So obviously Arlene's got a lovely photo there of her people, but yeah, you can show, for example, a slideshow or a rotating video or something like that, or just what some organizations do is actually use it and have it set up so it's a link to their website, and as people talk to them they can talk them through the resources, etc., and show that on there. It's just easier than crowding around a laptop and trying to look at it that way. So it's up to you, obviously, as long as you've got permission to share and it's your information, then it's fine.
A quick question on that. The screen that I'm assuming there'll be a cord there, we can hook or we can bring an HDMI cable to hook a laptop up.
Yes.
If, let's just say, nobody's in the booth, is there something that we would be able to have on the screen while we're not there if a laptop's not able to hook up? Or no, it would be off?
It would probably be off, obviously.
Okay.
If we've not really had that before. Obviously, they're usually staffed, or they would just be switched off. Obviously, if you were happy to leave your laptop out, either speaking to the person on the desk next to you, then you could have something on there.
Right. Okay.
The majority of
the cupboard and you can leave it on. So
yeah.
Oh, true.
So the laptop goes underneath in a lockable cupboard, and then so you leave the screen running while you're in a session, and the only thing that will happen is that if the power standby puts it off, but it can run on its own.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
If you've got these health animation sketches, they run quite well on it, and sometimes draw attention from the medics where they come and look at it because they've maybe not seen it before. So they, like, I know when I show them, they go down well. And then I've also got people, on photos which look good too.
Great, thank you.
Nora.
Hi, thanks. And in Liverpool we had scanners to capture the contacts. Will that be available this time?
So and that's a good point that I forgot to mention here, actually. So what we have got is we've got an agreement with our supplier, because it's a different supplier than was in Liverpool, obviously, that we can have 2 badge scanners within that patient area, but it would need to be shared unless you were willing to pay for a license yourself, which they're quite expensive. The license itself is about €550, so obviously it's an expense that goes with that. But what we've got is this agreement, like I say, to have a couple of badge scanners, and within there, if you're all happy to share that data, then of course you can use those sort of between you to get the information. It's not an ideal scenario, but it does mean that at least there's a way of collecting that data.
So the badge scanners would be shared amongst all the groups?
Yes.
Is what you're saying? Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So when we ask people to register in the terms and conditions, there's obviously a note in there to say that if you agree to have your badge scanned, this is the data you're agreeing to share, which is the email address, the organisation, the country, and name, etc. So they've all opted into that, and then it's obviously up to them whether they want to share that information. It's just a challenge for us from a cost perspective. If we provided a scanner to every group, it becomes quite prohibitively expensive, unfortunately, with the supply we have. So.
And one other quick question. Is it possible to send materials in advance to the venue?
That we do have a shipping supplier, and I can get you their details. They obviously charge for that. I need to check. My understanding is that the venue won't accept direct deliveries. It will only accept it through their logistics forwarder, which obviously adds a little bit of the cost to it. But I will double check on that and just make sure that you
Thank you.
Yeah, have the information.
Super.
It may be that you might be able to, depending on where you're staying, you might be able to speak to your hotel, for example, and ask if they could accept a delivery, but I couldn't say that. For sure.
Thank you, yeah.
But with the screen, you don't really need to bring lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really, if you're giving away a pen or a whatever, and then maybe 1 or 2 key important documents.
Yeah.
Is really all you need.
Yeah.
And those big banners are a nightmare, and they just get.
Right. Well, are there any other questions? Obviously, if something comes to you after this, feel free to drop me an email. I'll share the slides. I'll share the recording so you can all access it. Julie?
I have one more question. This has all been extremely informative. So thank you very much for having this meeting. It's great. We are having our own little satellite meeting before ESPE. And we're bringing together the patient community and the clinical community, the research community. And is there any opportunity? So we have, our ways of getting the word out about this event. But we have great speakers, fantastic speakers from around Scandinavia and the countries and beyond. Is there an opportunity to share to your whole mailing list that we're having this meeting?
I will need to check when and where is it taking place, Julie?
It's in Copenhagen at the Scandic Hotel, May 8th through 10th.
It ends on the 10th at noon.
Okay.
It's the Scandic Spectrum Hotel. I think there are a couple different Scandics just in case.
Because I know also that the EndoERN are having their annual meeting on the 9th and 10th as well. So obviously there's a clash there in terms of that participation. I'll need to check with the team in terms of what permissions we've got in terms of that mailing list, etc. And just see and let me speak to the team internally. And obviously I don't want to conflict with anything else that we're doing, and I will let you know on that one.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Can I just mention, I was on the website earlier on about the transport ticket, just in case other people haven't had a look.
That's a very good point.
It's quite a good deal from what I can see, and it's well done. I
can't take any credit for that.
People to Copenhagen, because for those of you that haven't been there before, it's really expensive, very expensive.
Yeah, it is. So what that is, and the detail is on the website, and I'm having to remind myself as well, because you probably now, having looked more recently, know more about it than I do, Arlene.
Something it costs a day. What is it? What's it? Danish krona? Is it krona?
Krona, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find the information.
A transport pass for anybody that needs it.
Yeah, I'll get the web link anyway when I send all this out.
Just go onto the Congress website and go into additional information. It's there.
Yeah.
As well as all the transport information.
Yeah. No, that's
There's
great.
also loads of discounts to touristy things if you're staying on extra and doing things.
Only if you're staying on there. You're not allowed to do it during the Congress.
Yeah, I'm not staying on. I'm going home.
Well, you're just not allowed to do it then, Arlene.
Too expensive. Stay on. And I've been before loads of times.
Okay. Any other questions? Great. Well, as I say, if anything comes to you, if you need to know anything else, do let me know. Drop me a note. And also, as you will have seen, and I think everyone was here, but just in case they weren't, Johan has shared a link in the chat to a drug shortages survey, which would be great if anybody who hasn't already completed it could complete it. That's obviously a big piece of work. Alain's done it, yeah.
By Friday, you want it under the Johan. Yeah.
And in the survey, it says the 28th of February, but you can take a week longer, but not longer than that, because we need the data to process.
Yeah.
So, Natalie, can I just say thank you so much for putting all the information together. It's really helpful.
Thanks,
And can I just tell you, she's an absolute dream. It's a well-organised conference when it's been organised by Natalie.
I'll pay you later, Aline.
No, it's a whole different experience compared to ESE, let me tell you. So this is much better.
We're bringing them along though. That's what we're doing this year is bringing them along, and hopefully them.
You're bringing them with you. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Good. Right, I'm gonna stop the